Okay, so we're jumping straight into this essay today, Jose Fernando Costa's The Algebra of Output.
Right.
What Costa's basically done is lay out a formula. It's a way to really dissect how our own efforts and, all these external things combine to create our actual output.
Mm.
It feels like it's about understanding the levers, right? The things that influence what you achieve, which I know is something you're always thinking about, tackling new things, growing your knowledge.
It is, yeah. And Costa actually mentions, doesn't he, that he's building on ideas from Alex Hormozi and Scott Galloway.
He does, yeah, he explicitly states that. It's his interpretation, but drawing from them.
That's quite a combo. Hormozi, who's all about, value and scaling, and Galloway with his big picture market takes. It suggests Costa's aiming for something practical, but also, context aware.
Exactly. And the core of it all is this equation he proposes. Output, input X intensity, X environment, X reputation.
Okay, packing a lot in there.
Totally. So the idea is what you produce isn't just about how much effort you put in, your input. It's also about the focus, the intensity you bring. Then there's the environment you're in. And finally, how your reputation shapes how it's all received.
Right.
So our mission, really, for this deep dive is to unpack that formula, get into each part, the subvariables too, and see what insights we can pull out for, understanding our own output better.
I like that breakdown. Input, intensity, environment, reputation.
Yeah.
It forces you to look beyond just work harder. There are these other dimensions that are pretty critical, but maybe easy to overlook.
Definitely. So let's start with that first half, input X intensity. Costa's argument is that your personal effort, the input, gets amplified or maybe diminished by how you apply yourself your intensity.
That makes sense. It's not just clocking the hours.
Yeah.
You can be there,
Yeah.
but if your head's not in the game or you're just not driven, the results won't match the time spent.
Exactly. It's that multiplier effect. Intensity isn't just added on, it multiplies the input. And then he digs into input itself. He breaks that down into base capacity X, innate talent, X, experience, 1, fatigue.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Base capacity first.
Yeah, base capacity. He defines it as the amount of work you can just do at your baseline, your normal level. And what's cool is he says it's not fixed. You can actually improve it over time.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
It fits with, habit building, skill development, things like Pomodoro or deliberate practice. Those are ways you could actively work on increasing that baseline,
Right.
Building stamina.
Totally. Like training for something. You build it up. Then that base gets multiplied by innate talent. So your natural abilities in whatever area we're talking about.
Right, the stuff you're perhaps naturally good at.
It's a reminder that we do have these inherent strengths. Gives you a potential boost. Doesn't mean it's everything, but it's a factor.
Absolutely. Knowing where your aptitudes are helps you lean into them. But, like Costa's formula shows, talent alone isn't enough. It needs the effort, the experience to really shine.
Right. Which brings us to the next multiplier, experience. This really hits home the value of learning, practicing, gaining that knowledge thoroughly.
Yeah, this resonates a lot. Every project, every skill learned, it adds to this experience factor, and that directly boosts your ability to produce. It compounds.
It really does. The more you know and apply, the better your capacity becomes. You get faster, more effective at things you've done before.
Exactly.
Okay, and the last piece of input is fatigue. He represents it as 1 fatigue, uses a scale, 0 to 1. 0 means no fatigue, 1 means you're completely wiped.
So it's a subtractive thing. High fatigue really cuts down your input.
Yeah, potentially to 0 or even negative, he suggests.
Yeah.
Which makes you think about those times pushing through exhaustion just leads to mistakes.
Oh, definitely. Mistakes that then take even longer to fix. So being fatigued doesn't just slow you down. It can actually impair your judgment, cause errors,
Yeah.
managing energy, rest, avoiding burnout. It's not optional. It's fundamental to input.
So true. Maximizing input isn't just hours. It's about nurturing talent, using experience, and crucially, managing that energy. They all work together.
Right.
Okay, so that's input. Let's move to intensity. Costa defines this as conformism, agency. This feels more psychological, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is about the drive behind the input. Less about capacity, more about the push. And it's interesting how he tries to quantify these sort of fuzzier concepts.
So conformism, he says its maximum is 1, but it never actually hits 0. His logic is there's always some pressure, internal or external, pushing you to do something, even if it's tiny.
Like even a mundane task you don't want to do.
Hmm.
There's maybe a background societal nudge or just a personal standard that makes you do it anyway. That baseline pressure.
That seems to be the idea. A scale from almost zero, minimal drive, up to one, full drive from that source.
Yeah.
It makes you reflect on how motivation varies task by task.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so conformism is one part. What's the other?
Urgency. This one, he says, has no upper limit. It's driven by internal stuff, your priorities, intrinsic motivation.
Ah, so that's the internal fire.
Seems like it. He sets a baseline of 1 for standard urgency.
Yeah.
Below that is relaxed. Above it is, high drive. But he also says it can't be totally zero either because there's always some internal expectation.
So conformism is maybe more external or subconscious pressure, while urgency is that personal conscious drive. And urgency can, like, really ramp up.
Yeah, potentially infinitely, according to the model. And he makes a key point about intensity's impact. Below 1 really hinders your input. 1 is average, but above 1 amplifies your efforts.
So even with great input, high-capacity talent, experience low intensity means your output still suffers.
Exactly. It's like having a powerful engine but barely touching the gas pedal.
Right. Low intensity means you're not getting anywhere near your potential. High intensity is flooring it.
Good analogy. Okay, so that covers the first bracket, input X intensity. Now, let's look at the second half, environment X reputation. This shifts us from the personal to the external factors.
Yeah, the context, which, as we know, can have a huge impact that we sometimes forget when we're just focused on our own efforts.
So true. Costa breaks environment down into leverage, X delegation, X momentum. Let's start with leverage.
Okay.
He defines it as your ability to amplify effort using tools, processes, maybe collaboration, working smarter, essentially.
Right. Force multipliers. Using software, standard operating procedures, working with people whose skills complement yours, ways to get more bang for your buck, effort-wise.
Exactly. Then there's delegation, effectively distributing tasks to others.
Which can massively multiply your impact, especially on bigger things or in teams. Recognizing you don't have to, and probably shouldn't, do it all yourself.
Yeah, it's not just offloading work. It's strategically allocating it to optimize the whole process. Frees you up for the high-value stuff only you can do.
And empowers others too, hopefully leading to better overall quality by matching tasks to skills.
Yeah.
Crucial for leadership.
Definitely. Now, Costa adds this idea of momentum as a multiplier for leverage and delegation. And momentum itself is made up of a few things: resources, consistency, purpose, and a supportive environment.
Okay, let's unpack momentum. Resources first.
Resources, pretty straightforward. The external tools, the funding, the support systems you actually have available.
Makes sense. Hard to leverage much or delegate effectively if you don't have the basic budget, tools, or people available. Resources are foundational.
Then consistency. This is about the reliability of those external conditions. Can you count on things being stable enough to keep making progress?
So predictability. Less friction, less need to constantly firefight or change course because the ground rules keep shifting. Consistency lets you build smoother progress.
Exactly. Next in momentum is purpose. He frames this as the alignment between those external factors and meaningful goals.
So it's not just having resources, but having resources that support something you actually care about. That connection between the environment and a meaningful mission.
That seems to be it. When the environment supports a resonant purpose, it creates this positive feedback loop, fuels motivation.
Yeah, I can see that. It makes it easier to push through obstacles if you feel the context is aligned with something important.
And the last part of momentum is a supportive environment. External conditions or maybe people that encourage your efforts, mentorship, positive culture, that kind of thing.
That's huge. Often underestimated. Just knowing you have backup, encouragement, it builds resilience, psychological safety, makes you more willing to try things.
For sure. So Costa says momentum overall reflects how effectively these external factors propel you. It's the speed and ease the environment provides for your leverage and delegation efforts to actually work.
So a high momentum environment is like a tailwind, pushing you forward. Low momentum is like swimming against the current.
Great way to put it. The environment isn't passive. It actively shapes your ability to produce results.
Absolutely.
Okay, that brings us to the final piece of the whole puzzle, reputation. Costa describes this as the ultimate external factor determining how your output lands.
Wow, the ultimate factor.
That's how he puts it. He argues your reputation, how others see you, value you, decides if your work is perceived as heroic or just insignificant. It brings in that whole social perception layer.
So reputation acts as the filter through which the output is judged, the trust, the credibility you've built up.
Exactly. A strong reputation means your work might get noticed more, valued higher, have more impact. A bad one, well, it could diminish even great work.
That's a bit sobering, isn't it? You
I'm
can
shocked.
nail input, intensity, even have a decent environment, but a poor reputation could still tank the perceived value.
It really underscores that you need to focus not just on the work itself, but also on professional conduct, relationships, building that trust.
Yeah, it shows how interconnected everything is. Output isn't created in a vacuum. It's received and interpreted by others. So managing reputation isn't vanity. It's actually integral to maximizing your long-term impact. It opens doors, builds trust for future efforts.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part, let's quickly touch on Costa's main takeaways from his essay. He offers two key concluding thoughts.
What are they?
First, he emphasizes focusing on your own inputs. That's the part you directly control. Input, intensity. Those are largely down to you. He suggests the reception of the output, well, that's largely determined by others, through that reputation lens we just discussed.
That's a practical piece of advice. Control what you can control, which is primarily your own effort and focus. Acknowledge that the external reception has its own dynamics.
Right, and his second takeaway is simply that these kinds of efforts and behaviors can be quantified, at least illustratively. His formula is an attempt to do that, to break down this dichotomy between personal contribution and external perception.
It serves as a model for thinking, even if the numbers themselves aren't precise scientific measurements. The act of trying to structure it this way forces a more analytical view of productivity and impact.
Exactly. It provides that structured way to analyze all these different elements contributing to what we achieve.
From your personal capacity and energy level.
To your drive and focus.
And then considering the tools that help the momentum from your surroundings.
And finally, how your accumulated reputation shapes the final perception. It's a comprehensive lens.
It definitely prompts a more thoughtful, maybe more strategic approach, rather than just blindly putting in hours, considering how you work and the context, not just what you do.